This is a platform where we share stories of love, loss, and the twists and turns that life can bring. Please subscribe to support us and stay tuned for more captivating chronicles. I'm a 43-year-old man, and my wife is 40. We've been married for 16 years, and we have 2 children, a 14-year-old daughter, and a 9-year-old son. Our journey together started off rocky, but we managed to overcome those tough years and come out stronger. We married young, and looking back, I wonder if we were a bit too idealistic, believing we could conquer any obstacle in our path. Our careers have been successful. My wife is a manager at a major advertising company, a role she's held for 3 years, while I've been in engineering for 7 years. Our jobs provide us with a comfortable lifestyle. We've always been a close-knit family, making sure to create wonderful memories for our kids no matter how busy life got. I take pride in being a good husband and father, though I'm not without my flaws. Recently, I made a shocking discovery that shook me to my core. It turns out that my wife has been involved in a long-term affair. The signs were there over the past 2 years. She became increasingly distant, seemingly disinterested in anything I did. She started comparing me to her boss, constantly mentioning how he handled things better. She criticized my lack of initiative, especially when it came to planning romantic outings or making her feel special. Her response was often frustratingly vague. "You should already know what to do." Feeling lost, I turned to research, bought books, and sought advice, desperate to reignite our love life. However, no matter what I attempted, it was met with lukewarm appreciation or outright disappointment. This wasn't the woman I had known for years, and I felt a growing need to fix whatever was wrong. Little did I know that it wasn't me who needed fixing. We had become close friends with her boss and his wife, bonding over shared family outings and get-togethers. Our children got along well, and it seemed like a natural friendship. Little did I know that this closeness was a cover for my wife's affair with her boss, a secret that had been hidden right under my nose. I found solace in confiding in her boss about our marital problems. He seemed like a genuinely helpful guy, and his advice gave me some hope. Little did I know that this connection would later unravel into something far more complicated. Back to the discovery. My emotional fatigue from my wife's constant demands for self-improvement or the marriage being over had taken a toll on me. It was bewildering because until then, I had believed we had a great marriage. One faithful night I noticed her laughing and giggling while texting someone. We were in bed together and curiosity got the best of me. As I leaned in to take a peek, she violently pulled away, her anger palpable. She demanded to know what I was doing. I explained that I wanted to see what was so funny, and she personally informed me that it was none of my business before retreating to the bathroom. That moment was when I began to suspect that something was amiss, although I had no concrete proof. The following day, I made the mistake of confronting her directly about my suspicions. She reacted with fury and vehemently denied any wrongdoing. Desperate for the truth, I asked to see her phone, but she adamantly refused. It wasn't until later that night, with great reluctance, that she handed over her phone. However, almost every text message to specific individuals had been deleted. It was apparent because some conversations seemed inconsistent while others were absurd. I returned her phone without further confrontation, biding my time. A month later, I managed to enlist the help of a friend to check her phone and recover deleted texts. By this point, she had gotten another phone and hardly used the one she gave me. Some texts were recovered, and through fragments I finally had proof of the affair with her boss, as you might have guessed. I knew that confronting her immediately would likely lead to her finding a way to deny it. So I held off. I was wrecked during this time, consumed by thoughts of how it would impact our kids. The situation was agonizing, and I even broke down in front of my friend. Despite everything, I wasn't ready to give up on our marriage. 3 days later, I bought a book titled How to Help Your Spouse Heal from an Affair. It may sound naive, but I hope that if I gave it to my wife, she would come to her senses and end the affair. I desperately wanted my wife back and to save our marriage. I had planned to talk to her that Saturday to work things out, but she informed me that they had an emergency at work and not to wait up for her. Naturally, I called her workplace on that day to verify her story, only to find that they weren't even open on Saturdays. I tried calling her phone, but there was no answer. She finally came home at 2 in the morning on Sunday, immediately taking a shower before climbing into bed. I couldn't contain my frustration and asked her why she was so late. She dodged the question, reminding me that she had already told me not to wait for her. I had had enough. I didn't give her the book I had bought, and I was suffering, but she seemed indifferent to my pain. In my desperation for some stability and answers, I reached out to her boss's wife to see if she knew anything. I don't regret that decision to this day. She was just as shocked as I was when she found out. She wanted to confront her husband, but I cautioned her that he would likely lie and try to cover it up much like my wife had done. We decided to meet at her house to discuss the situation, and I shared the little proof we had. She wanted more evidence, so we both agreed to gather more on our respective sides and compare notes. I started snooping on my wife more diligently, and she did the same with her husband. It was shockingly easy for her to find undeniable proof. Her husband was so arrogant that he hadn't even bothered to delete the texts on his phone between him and my wife. The bits of text I had found earlier finally made sense, and we had a complete picture of their 2-year affair. The boss's wife and I were furious. Revenge crossed our minds, but we decided against sinking to their level. We both threw up divorce papers around the same time and were dead set on ending our marriages. Our spouses were clueless about the fact that we knew about their affair, and we continued to play our parts. By the time we had all our legal affairs in order, they were at it again. This time, with the boss's wife's collaboration, we knew exactly where and how to serve them with the divorce papers. We even knew which hotel they had booked for their rendezvous weekend. I personally went to the hotel with the sheriff. I waited nervously in the lobby as the sheriff took care of the logistics. My wife was called down from her room, dressed in a bathrobe, and panic-stricken. She demanded to know what I was doing there. It was a considerable distance from our home, but not too far. The sheriff asked for confirmation of her identity, and in her confused state, she affirmed it. That's when she was served with the divorce papers, and our tumultuous chapter together took another painful turn. Seeing the shocked look on my wife's face when she was served with divorce papers was undeniably satisfying, but I didn't want to gloat or rub it in. Instead, I decided to walk away knowing that the job was done. However, she didn't let me leave so easily. She grabbed my arm, pulling me back, demanding to know what this all meant. I told her straightforwardly, "You had an affair, and I'm leaving you." It was as simple as that. Her reaction was explosive. She began screaming at me and gripping my arm even harder. The sheriff had to step in to tell her to release me, and eventually she did, breaking down into tears and pleading that she could explain that I had it all wrong. I was seething with anger, so I left quickly, heading home. I later learned that my wife had informed her boss about the situation, and he rushed home only to be served with divorce papers as well. We hadn't given them time to get their heads straight. It was a blindsided move, much like what they had done to us. Now my divorce is on track to be finalized in a couple of months. But my wife and her boss are both fighting a tooth and nail. They claimed they never intended to leave their spouses, but it was just a physical affair, and that other couples have had worse affairs and managed to salvage their marriages. They're hoping for a chance to 1F the situation. I've asked my wife what she expects the outcome to be, and she says she's going with the flow, that her actions were completely out of character and that she's not that person anymore. But I'm not so sure. She called me bitter and resentful, unable to look past the negativity. She did apologize for it later, but I can't help but think that's how she truly feels. I still maintain contact with the boss's wife, and my wife absolutely despises it. She believes I might have revenge on my mind, or that the boss's wife is influencing my decisions. She's repeatedly asked me to initiate no contact with her, just as she did with her boss. I've told her I think she's crazy. We haven't done anything wrong. So why should I respect her opinions now? Honestly, I think I'm done. I've lost respect for, and she refuses to let go, actively trying to engage with me about her thoughts and processes regarding the affair. To me, they all sound like excuses, so I don't entertain her attempts anymore. I've been grappling with my wife's request for therapy, but I've read stories where therapists have seemingly blamed the victim, and it made me reluctant. I thought, hell no. She also suggested reading infidelity books together, and I couldn't see the point if we're headed for divorce anyway. She's expressed a desire to be intimate, but I told her it felt like manipulation. And I wasn't going to be swayed by it. She insisted it wasn't manipulation. She just wanted to show me how much she loved me. I corrected her and said, "Loved me," emphasizing the past tense. People around me, including my mom, are frustrated with my stance. They argue that people make mistakes and that my wife realizes her love for me through her mistakes. They believe I shouldn't shut the door on reconciliation too quick, but I've been confirming my response, telling them I won't be anyone's fallback plan. I'm caught in a web of conflicting emotions. There's still love there, but it's tangled up with anger and hurt. I can't help but wonder if I'm being unnecessarily cruel to her. She's making a genuine effort to make amends, but I find it hard to care anymore. The question that haunts me is whether I should reconsider the divorce. People are warning me that I might be moving too quickly and that I'll regret it. I'm stuck in a sea of uncertainty, not knowing what's real and what's not. I want to clarify that my wife and I are in a somewhat stable place right now, but it's crucial to understand that this doesn't mean we're reconciling. I'm still determined to go through with the divorce. My wife, on the other hand, is begging for another chance and is going to great lengths to earn it. However, I can't easily forgive a 2-year affair. It's just too much to move past. We've attended a few therapy sessions together, not because I want to save the marriage deep down, but because I still care for her. One of those sessions was particularly helpful. It made me realize that my wife is genuinely remorseful. She hasn't handled the aftermath of her affair perfectly, but she's been making a considerable effort. The second therapy session, though, was a disaster. My wife got upset with me for continuously contacting the boss's wife, who will call Robin. She was afraid I might seek revenge. It was one of the angriest moments throughout this ordeal, and we argued extensively afterward because I refused to comply with her request to cut off contact with Robin. We resolved it when I promised there would be no revenge affair. While I don't owe her anything, she's still my wife until the divorce is finalized. And I want to uphold my commitments. I've continued attending a few more therapy sessions with her, not because I'm secretly hoping to salvage the marriage, but because I want to see her progress myself and, if necessary, participate in the process. It's worth noting that the therapist we'd seeing is an individual and marriage therapist. Despite our divorce proceedings, Robin is also leaving her husband, who will call us head. He's resisting the divorce just as fiercely as my wife, and we do confide in each other on those difficult days. However, I want to emphasize that there's no affair happening between us. We're just on friendly terms. Robin is a strong and independent woman who doesn't tolerate any nonsense. My kids are doing okay. They understand that our divorce doesn't mean we love them any less. While they don't want the divorce, they comprehend why it's necessary for us, and we've discussed it with them in an age-appropriate manner. My wife no longer works at the advertisement company where the affair took place. She resigned shortly after I served her with divorce papers. According to her, she's had no contact with us and reached out to online forums for advice on saving the marriage. I've spent some time reading stories here, and initially, I couldn't fathom why people stayed with adulterers. However, seeing my wife's efforts to become a better person, I understand the temptation. She's not a monster. She's just flawed and made terrible choices from which she's learning to grow. My wife has offered me everything under the sun for a second chance, even proposing a post-nuptial agreement. Strangely, I wasn't entirely opposed to it, but it would be a long road for me to even consider it as a possibility. She seems genuinely willing, but I'm not convinced it would benefit either of us in the end. A significant part of me wants the divorce as a fleeting sense of justice. It's the only justice I can achieve without stooping to the level of an adulterer. Lastly, my mom and I have reconciled after I revealed more details about my wife's affair. Now she's absolutely furious with my wife. Having learned the full extent of what transpired, my wife's fear of a revenge affair has become a significant source of tension between us. It's clear that she's deeply insecure, especially when she compares herself to Robin, who is younger, successful, and attractive. This insecurity leads her to worry that I might seek revenge by cheating on her, a notion that I find both infuriating and hypocritical. It's baffling to me that she can lecture me about the two wrongs don't make a right principle when she herself had an affair. While she's not entirely wrong in her concern, I have no intention of following through with such revenge. Her paranoia about it only adds to the frustration. Whenever I plan to visit Robin, my wife's emotions go haywire. She oscillates between extreme sadness and extreme clinginess. It's become a pattern where she throws herself at me, likely to ensure that I won't cheat on her in return. I've rejected her advances each time, which only seems to exacerbate the situation. It's bewildering how cheaters can be so selfish, only focused on their own pain, while the betrayed have to navigate the wreckage left behind. Despite our impending divorce, our kids still maintain their friendships. I make sure never to visit Robin without our kids, but my wife continues to think that I'm capable of being as heartless as she was in taking any opportunity to engage with Robin romantically. It's honestly laughable. As far as he's living the consequences of his actions, begging Robin to take him back from the holiday home. I can't deny that seeing him suffer brings me some satisfaction. He hasn't tried to threaten me, likely aware of the leverage I have over him because of my continued contact with his wife. He's allowed to visit his kids whenever he wants, but he intentionally schedules those visits when he knows I won't be around. Currently, my wife has become extremely apologetic and has been showering me with affection. However, I've been brushing off her attempts of reconciliation because I'm not in a good place emotionally. We have a therapy session scheduled today, and I'm contemplating unloading all the pain and hurt I've had to endure due to our actions. The rage inside me is becoming overwhelming, and I'm not sure how much longer I can contain it. I've come to a profound realization about my marriage and my worth as a person. For years, I felt like I had wasted precious time on a woman who seemed to devalue me. Despite the wonderful kids and cherished memories we created together, I now understand that I deserve better. My wife's betrayal and the way she treated me when she found someone else's attention were hurtful and demeaning. She invested her energy elsewhere, and it took me a long time to accept that I deserved more than that. Now she's desperately trying to keep me in her life. She's putting effort into us, something she didn't do before. She's become adventurous in bed, something we liked previously. I'm realizing how much I missed out on. I'm also aware of the explicit nature of her texts with the other man, and it pains me to think about the extent of their intimacy. She's giving me space, being supportive and respecting my boundaries. She treats me like a king now, something I wish she had done before, but I had to remove her from the pedestal she was on. She's transparent and brutally honest, even when it's difficult for her or could upset me. I can see the shame and regret in her face daily. It's hard for me to accept that I still feel the need to reject her despite her efforts. I sometimes hate myself for it, but it feels necessary. People have told me that she's remorseful and many relationships survive long-term affairs and even come out stronger. They've urged me to consider a future together and see the positive aspects of her change. But my answer remains the same. I will not accept disrespect. While I may have been willing to consider reconciliation in the early stages, I've since awakened to the reality that it's not the right path for me. I'm going to enjoy this Christmas with my entire family, and then I'll move on from my wife. I decided to stop listening to the excuses I created in my head to rationalize staying in a relationship that no longer serves me. I'm moving forward and letting go entirely of the idea of being with her. We will not be dating again or given another chance. We're over for good. I want her to find happiness, but I now realize it won't be with me. Today, I made a call to Robin and extended an invitation for dinner after the holidays as a gesture of gratitude for her unwavering support during my lowest moments. She graciously accepted, and I couldn't be more appreciative. Our bond has been a lifeline for me throughout this challenging journey, but I have options. Robin has been a supportive presence throughout. And while I'm not actively seeking a new relationship, the possibility is there. Now as far as Head, I couldn't care less about him. My focus has shifted away from him and towards my own well-being and future. I've come to the conclusion that I may not want to get married again. The whole concept of marriage has started to seem like a questionable institution to me. I apologize if my outlook comes across as cynical. It's just a reflection of my current state of mind. I've invested my best years in a marriage that didn't yield the returns I'd hoped for, and it's left me feeling somewhat disillusioned. This completes the arc of my emotional journey from initial doubt to frustration and anger, and now to a growing willingness to move on and explore new possibilities beyond my current relationship. The separation from my wife became official almost 3 weeks ago, and those initial days were incredibly tough. I grieved as if I had lost a loved one, and the realization of the spectacular failure of my marriage hit me hard. It was perhaps the hardest I've cried since the day I discovered the affair in the first place. I also felt a lot of anger during this time, and it was undoubtedly one of the lowest points in my life. We've managed to organize everything, particularly for the sake of our kids. She has moved out of the house, and I'm in the process of buying out her share of it. She now lives in an apartment, which is a significant downgrade for her, and it seems to be affecting her emotionally. She continues to see a therapist and is deeply engrossed in reading and studying infidelity, which I find somewhat perplexing. We've had lengthy discussions both leading up to when following the divorce, but we've maintained minimal physical contact. I know I probably shouldn't entertain her at this point, but she is still the mother of my children, and I want us to be good co-parents. However, she continues to express a desire to reconcile, and I'm reluctant to put myself back into that situation. My focus is on moving forward, not returning to what once was. This past weekend, I accompanied Robin to dinner, with no particular agenda other than enjoying each other's company and having a chat. We discussed a wide range of topics and things took a flirty turn between us. I was initially hesitant about the rapidly changing mood, but I must admit the night ended passionately. It was quite possibly the most mind-blowing intimacy I've ever experienced. Robin is incredibly giving, and she surpassed my ex by miles. While I didn't intend for things to go that far, both of us were willing participants. I learned a few new tricks in the process, and it was the first time I had someone so enthusiastic about pleasing me rather than the other way around. As for the future, I'm unsure whether we'll take our relationship further." It was likely a mix of hormones and wine that led to our passionate encounter that night. Robin may want to explore things further, but I believe both of us need time to sort ourselves out emotionally before making any decisions. I must admit, though, that I feel surprisingly good about the situation. While some may not appreciate hearing this, sleeping with Robin helped boost my self-esteem and made me feel desired and alive. It opened my eyes to what I had been missing out on, and I can't see myself settling for a robotic bed again. What was even more satisfying was the knowledge that I wasn't cheating and hadn't compromised my morals. All things considered, I'm proud of how I've handled this entire ordeal. I wasn't perfect, but I did my best given the circumstances. I may have lost a substantial amount of money, but in many ways, I consider myself fortunate compared to other betrayed husbands. I'm still in counseling, and my relationship with Robin is going strong. She managed to settle her case with us head, displaying maturity and handling child custody and financial matters. We've had some friction between the children, and we're addressing it through therapy to help them adjust to the changes. Their well-being is our top priority, even though not everyone is on board with how we're handling things. My daughter, my ex, and S-head don't get along, and tensions run high when they're around each other. My ex still hopes for a second chance and seems frustrated that Robin is in the picture, clouding my judgment. It's baffling how my ex's behavior changed after I moved on, and I'm genuinely concerned about her actions. She tried something at the 4th of July party. And while I shut it down, it wasn't firm enough. I didn't anticipate that my ex would be so persistent, and it's becoming increasingly clear that she wants to come back into my life. Robin is getting tired of dealing with my ex's antics as well. It's worth mentioning that my ex harbors a deep-seated hatred for Robin. I treated my ex better than anyone else in my life, but she treated me poorly. It's puzzling how she's now trying to grab my attention after I moved on. I'm not sure if I should be angry about it, but at least I can say that I found happiness and closure. There are still a few loose ends to tie up, like getting my daughter on board with my new relationship. But overall, I'm free from my ex in content and my relationship with Robin. As for my ex and S-head, it's somewhat amusing that they're blaming each other when they should be looking in the mirror, as they were the ones who chose to cheat and carry this weight. In closing, this journey has been filled with unexpected twists and turns, heartache, and newfound hope. I've learned that life can be incredibly complex and people's actions often defy logic. Through it all, I've chosen to prioritize my own well-being and happiness. And I'm beginning to see the light at the end of the tunnel. As I move forward with Robin by my side, I cherish the lessons learned, the strength gained, and the love that has found its way into my life once more. The future remains uncertain, but I'm ready to embrace it with an open heart and the hope of brighter days ahead. Dear listener, if you have reached this far, please consider subscribing our channel, as it helps and motivates us to continue our work.